Prelude. In a land that greatly resembles the feudal era of Japan, people live in peace. Sort of. They remain clueless to the dark dealings that occur in the shadows of their towns and cities. While the privileged live their lives without a care in the world and the poor roam the streets, the true monsters of society lurk in the dark of night. They're known by many names, but the one we're most aware of: assassins. Chapter 1. Pyo-wol is a 14-year-old orphan who roams this world, without a place he can call home. As he walks through a town where a fair is being held, Pyo runs into a strange man wearing a straw hat that covers his face. The next thing he knows is he's waking up in a dark abyss. He can feel himself laying somewhere, but he can't see anything. It's pitch black all around him and he finds himself unable to move any part of his body. As he thinks of how he got here, he realizes the mysterious man must have kidnapped him. He can't understand why he would do such a thing though, as Pyo has never made an enemy of anyone. As he lays there in the dark, he constantly repeats his and his parents' names to try and keep his mind functioning. It's all he can do to keep from losing his sanity. He refuses to die here no matter what. The boy is determined more than anything to survive this hell. Eventually, he feels some of his senses returning. With his smell and hearing, he concludes he's in an underground room with water dripping somewhere. He follows the sound of the water out of thirst but bumps into a stone wall. Laying defeated and depressed, Pyo looks up to see a ghostly version of himself staring down at him. Chapter 2. As the mirror Pyo locks eyes with Pyo, he asks the laying boy why he's trying so hard. His life wasn't that great to begin with, so why bother? Why not just accept death? Pyo refuses this idea and tells the other him that he'll never be at peace if he dies without taking revenge on the man that put him here. It'll be his goal to survive and take revenge on everyone that's made him suffer. He'll never give up. When the ghost disappears, Pyo opens his eyes to see darkness again and wonders if everything he just experienced was a dream. Maybe he really is going mad. This thought drives him to regain control of his body with sheer willpower. The boy rises onto his knees and makes his way to the wall he bumped into before. Finding moss growing on it, he eats it despite the foul taste. He can't afford to die of hunger, not when he has a goal to achieve. Walking around the room, he works out its size and layout. Later, a light shines towards him. There's a door in this place. Someone pushes in a bowl of rotten food for him to eat. Smelling the bowl to figure out the types of food in it, Pyo works out that there are at least 5 guards outside this room. On top of that, each guard is probably assigned to multiple prisoners in rooms just like the one he's trapped in. Chapter 3. Time swiftly passes by and it's already 4 months. In this time, he's learned the exact time he's given food every day, trained his body to its physical peak and adapted his vision to see better in the dark that surrounds him. He's able to see the vast amounts of insects and small creatures that live around his cell. One day, he's bitten on the arm by a venomous white snake. As the poison courses through his body and makes him feel a burning pain, he hastily gulps down his food for the day. Once his body fights off the effects of the poison, Pyo sees the snake properly. He notices that fighting off the poison seems to have made his body stronger. It must be what suddenly made his sight so much better. Pyo decides to let himself be bitten again if the poison can make him stronger. He'll do what he must to gain the power to take his revenge. Later, he's shocked when the door to his room is opened and no one is there. He walks out and finds another room a little distance away from his own. Inside, all he finds is the rotting corpse of another person who seems to have been his age. As Pyo continues exploring, he finds a huge iron door in the main hallway with its bolts taken out. When he opens it, he's faced with a man and woman shrouded in darkness. Chapter 4. Walking through the doors, Pyo realizes these two can't see anything around them as well as he can. The girl introduces herself as So Yowol and the boy is Song Chunwoo. Telling them to follow, Pyo continues forward to get out of here. On the way, he sees more rooms with dead bodies inside. The two with him seem to be the only other survivors of this place. When they go through yet another iron door, they see a whole group of people. These are more people who were imprisoned here but survived. Joining up with them, they walk further until reaching the final door. Going through it, they're all blinded for a moment by seeing light for the first time in months. Unfortunately, the light was only from a torch. They're still underground in what looks to be a very poorly built living area that imitates a village or town. While they investigate, a girl from the group, Lee Min, speaks to Pyo. He finds out from her that his eyes have turned red, but she tells him it's not very noticeable. So Yowol comes over to the two and tells them the kids are all forming a group to stick together for safety. Lee Min decides to join, but to So's surprise, Pyo refuses. For now, he'd like to stay on his own and see how things turn out. He's not fully convinced that all of these people are fully sane after months. Alone in the dark. Chapter 5. After some time, the children have formed 4 major groups under the leadership of So, Kang Il, Yum Il Young, and Go Yongzhen. Pyo has remained separate from all of them, and rumors have spread about how he must have killed everyone in his section of the prison. Pyo continues his investigation of the place and learns that this village was built recently, but the underground area itself was made long ago. He also deduces whoever had this done must be very wealthy to be able to afford it. Later, a basket comes down from the ceiling of this place. Inside is tons of food. When everyone rushes in to grab some of it, So and Song step in to stop them. They want to make sure the food is split evenly between everyone. Before the group leaders can start doing this, Pyo steps in and says he'll take his share first. Yum tries to stop him by force, but Pyo doesn't hesitate to fight back. Jabbing the boy's face with an open hand, Pyo gouges out Yum's right eye with his thumb on the spot. So talks him down and gets Pyo to step back with a promise of his share remaining untouched. This event alienates him from the rest of the kids even more. After some time, Pyo and So have a talk. With Yum's humiliation, many children switched into her group. A big reason for this was her fairness and care for the kids under her care. Meanwhile, Pyo continues to sleep in his dark room since he's grown used to it. He doesn't tell her though that he's also staying there so he could gain full resistance to the snake's poison. As their talk ends, the basket comes down for their latest meal. To the children's horror, the amount of food in it has drastically reduced. The next stage in the plan to thin their numbers has begun. Chapter 6. As time passes, the groups devolve into a silent war. Every night, the weakest member of a group dies. Over and over till no one trusts each other anymore and they're all on guard from starvation. Meanwhile, Pyo lives by eating the moss from his room. One day, Yum enters Pyo's section to try and take revenge for his eye. With 3 of his followers, he's prepared to kill the boy. Before they can find him, one of them is bitten by the snake that lives here. He dies instantly from the venom. As the others become afraid, Pyo grabs each of Yum's followers from inside the shadows. One by one, he snaps their necks and leaves Yum to face him alone. Enraged by the loss of his men, Yum rushes forward and tries to swipe at Pyo with punches. Pyo dodges everything and appears behind Yum, backing him into a wall as he tries to run. Knowing he's got no options left, Yum begs Pyo to spare him. He offers everything he can, from an alliance to even a promise to be Pyo's underling. Pyo knows he can't be trusted though. He strikes Yum with an open-handed upward strike to the jaw and gets behind him for a chokehold. He snaps the thug's neck and walks off. As he leaves, Pyo vows to become strong enough he doesn't even need to kill his enemies. Chapter 7. With Yum dead, his group is disbanded and all the remaining survivors fear Pyo will too much to try anything against him. Meanwhile, Go Yongzhen's group is lured into a trap by So's group. She baits them into an inescapable area and orders her followers to kill what's left of the man's group. Go begs her to kill just him and spare his followers. So tells him they can't afford to leave so many people alive with the food they get reducing more and more. He fights valiantly but Go is eventually overwhelmed by sheer numbers and goes down. Pyo observes all of this from a roof nearby. He's finally figured out what their kidnappers' goal is. They put them into an area that mimics a residential district and are forcing them to learn how to kill each other with stealth and tactics. This is all for one purpose. They're training them to become assassins. Chapter 8. Over time, So's group has grown far too used to killing. They treat the lives of others outside their group as if they're just a game. Li Min is disgusted by this but has no choice but to stay in the group for survival. One day, the food basket comes down earlier than usual. With so many now dead, So believes her people will be able to eat their fill this time. When she looks at Pyo nearby though, she's confused to see his expression. He looks angry and even worried. She soon finds out why. Instead of food, a group of masked men drop down from the ceiling and beat all the children into submission. Pyo tells himself to endure it since drawing attention now will ruin his plans. 3 masked men in more distinct clothes appear. These are the leaders of this organization and the ones pulling the strings. To ensure their authority isn't questioned, they have one of the children killed just for speaking out of turn. Later, the masked leaders meet. The one with a single line on his mask, First Sword, seems to be the highest ranked. As he speaks to Second Sword, it's revealed Pyo was spot on in his conclusion of what's happening here. The children were thrown into this place with pathetic living conditions to find which of them have the strongest survival instincts and power. The ones who made it out are to be used as tools in an assassination. One that has been assigned to their group with a completion deadline of 7 years. The condition is to leave no traces of their organization, Blood Phantom Group. 1 whole year has already passed since the children were kidnapped. Chapter 9. The masked men now personally train the children. Every day they set tasks for them to complete, and those who fail are killed. So Yowol is noticed as the best candidate by the leaders for her intelligence, judgment, guts and power. Meanwhile, Pyowol holds back and makes himself seem barely average to keep their attention off him. During their free time, Pyo reads a book about the thunder-splitting cultivation technique. The rest of the children stopped after learning the basic skill their instructors told them to learn. The ability to sense chi, the internal energy of the human body. But Pyo knows there's more to it, and he plans to gain this greater power. Later, he faces another boy in battle. Their instructors don't care who dies as long as there's a clear winner, so Pyo has to actually participate. The other boy attacks him with a variety of methods, from knife slashes to throwing hidden blades and even sneak attacks. Pyo dodges all of them and keeps defending for a while. Eventually though, he can't keep doing this. He throws his knife down, which makes the other boy cocky. As he rushes in, Pyo knees him in the stomach with full force, knocking the wind out of the boy. He proceeds to break his arm with a knee grapple and leaves the boy on the ground. Meanwhile, first and second sword speak about their assassination target. Knowing he's the most powerful man in the whole region, they decide to up the children's training intensity. Chapter 10. After Pyo defeats his opponent, first sword appears behind him. He scares the boy with a sword swing so fast not even Pyo could see it. As Pyo wonders if he messed something up, first sword pulls back his blade. Before leaving, he tells Pyo that as an assassin, he can't leave any traces of his presence. His opponents must die. Moving forward, 6 years have passed in the blink of an eye. The number of children has fallen drastically as they kept dying in their training. One day, a training session takes place to test their hiding skills. This is to see how well they've grasped the turtle breathing technique. A skill that allows one to slow down their body's vital functions so much that they seem dead and their chi cannot be sensed. While the instructor finds everyone else easily, Pyowol is so skilled that he has to admit defeat. Stepping out of his spot, Pyo heads to his friends for a break. So, Song and surprisingly, So Gyeogzan, a savage boy who seems to wear the faces of those that have died. As Pyo thinks about how they might be getting out soon, So Yowol mentions that the quality of their food has been getting better. She believes they'll be given a mission any day now. Highest power holder in the assassin organization, First Sword, who is named Lim Seol, can be seen questioning himself about his ability to raise assassins for Jonghu. Since the cruelty of that place is known by everyone, but he has trained the children enough to be fit for the upcoming challenges. The leader Lim thinks that he might be closing into his death since he gets that emotional these days. 2 other companions of his are named Gu Shinhang and Sang Ilshin. They are surprised to see their leader taking his mask off. Lim reassures them that they are free to take off their masks as well. He then proposes them to drink alcohol with him, but Goose says that they can drink as much as they want after getting out since it is not too far out now. Almost 7 years has passed, and the children will be sent to the assassination, which will make them 3 free. Almost all of the children are performing better than their instructors and they are already beyond their control. Goose says that it will be foolish to throw them away after one single use, but Lim says that they have no choice but to follow the order. Lim wants to begin the final stage, which includes 3 of the children learning a specific martial art technique, and the other 27 of them must assassinate those 3. The 3 swords have promised that to be their last training and that they will not force any more on them until they leave the place. So, it means that 3 of them will be sacrificed and 27 will survive. But it felt like a bait to Pyo. Pyo decides to learn that martial art since it is likely the one that their assassination target has learned. Yowol thinks that he is only choosing to be a scapegoat, but Pyo thinks the opposite. One by one, the children who learned the martial arts fell down and only Pyowol was left. Pyowol hasn't been seen by anyone for a few days, so Yowol is overthinking about what to do. When the group leaves to track down Pyo, he comes out from the shadows and thinks about their idea of killing the idea of instructors. Pyo reaches the place where the instructors are staying for a temporary time, and it is highly guarded. By using 2 techniques at the same time, Pyowol gets inside the base without getting detected by the guards. He finds a door in the deepest point of the base, but there was nobody inside. Pyo starts rummaging into random books and scrolls to find out clues about the place and the people keeping them trapped. After rummaging for a while, he finds out the scroll inside a golden cover which reveals the main quest of this whole training and countless deaths, since it was about someone named Wu Gunsang getting assassinated, which makes Pyo only wonder how great he really is. Everything the kids are facing in their life currently is being done for his sole assassination. All of a sudden, First Sword Lim unlocks the room and gets inside. After entering the room he realizes that someone was there, which makes him mad. All of the three leaders are now going insane to find out who the intruder was. Together they now understand that it might be none other than Pyo Wool. The First Sword decides to use the Hell Call to provoke everyone about Pyo Wool, and it was supposed to be the last resort of their task. All of the leaders agree with Lim's decision, and with their approval he goes forward playing the instrument. The sound of the instrument makes all the children feel like some insects are ripping apart their flesh piece by piece. But it has no effects on Pyo Wool whatsoever, which makes him wonder why. He was primarily unable to find out any differences between him and the others. But after thinking for a while, he realized it might be related to poison somehow. Pyo Wool has resistance to poison from being bitten by the snake for a long time, but the way that the leaders can awaken the poison dormant in 27 bodies at once makes him wonder. Just when a guard started coming close, Pyo Wool started acting like he was in pain as well. When the First Sword sees Pyo on the ground groaning, he immediately stabs his with his sword and gets on with interrogating him. Just when he was about to execute Pyo, the Second Sword forbids him to do it. He says that Pyo is a great candidate for his skills and that they will need him the most. The Second Sword gets convinced by the acting of Pyo being affected by the Hell Call, and he says that Pyo will be in control as they have the upper hand on him. The First Sword gets convinced by the Second Sword, so they start feeding all of them the antidote of Hell Call. First Sword Lim announces that it was Pyo's fault for the punishment of all the children for infiltrating their personal base. All of the children were given the final warning for Pyo's actions. Pyo becomes sure of his predictions that the snake venom must be working on his body, so he has no effects like everyone else. Meanwhile, rest of the survivors are now looking for Pyo Wool to find him while he was meditating alone in the secluded cave. When they all were discussing about Pyo Wool and where he is hiding, he suddenly presents himself from the shadows. The presence of him behind them startled them really badly. They all were scared to death by his sole presence. Yo Wool reveals that they were only looking for him to discuss about the restriction made by the assassins. Yo Wool was clever than the rest of the children, so she knew that it probably had less or no effect on him. Li Min also knew on the inside that Pyo helped her by infusing some internal energy in her. Pyo agrees with the statement of Yo Wool that he knows about the restriction's secret. Yo Wool and the group asks him to reveal the secret, but he refuses to spill any beans, which makes them react. The whole group promises to be faithful to him, and Pyo finally reveals that it is curse poison. The curse poison is residing inside their body, and it reacts just when the flute starts blowing. By flowing inside their blood vessels, it tracks the organs and starts taking a toll on them. Since Pyo is resistant to poison, it has no effects on him. Pyo revealed the main secret behind it, but they have to find a way to remove the curse poison on their own. Since revealing new ways will only create variations, it will help everyone. Li Min tries understanding Pyo Wool, but she is unable to do that because of his mysterious self. The whole group thanks him for his help and promises to help him with any kind of issue. Li Min finally reveals her real name being Li Shulman to Pyo Wool. She seems to be into Pyo Wool for reducing her pain from the Hell Call. The next day, First Sword Lim announces that they are going to leave the cave finally. Yo Wool is given the responsibility for leading the children outside the cave, but Lim wonders how many of them will survive the final journey in Jianghu. One by one the children start departing from the cave while the instructors think about their retirement. Yo Wool says that Min knew a lot about poison, so few of them are now detoxified, which surprises Pyo Wool. Rest of the group starts escaping the cave with Pyo Wool. Since the light was so strong, Pyo Wool ordered everyone to cover their eyes because it will blind them, and it hurts. An unknown man praises their tactics and gets impressed by seeing them. Pyo Wool guesses that the man must be the captain of the Blood Phantom group, and his name was Gu Juyong. All of the children were taken in the carriage to move them to Clear Wind Manor and acclimate with the outside world. Pyo Wool memorized his voice so he can remember it later. After seeing a well, Pyo Wool decides to cleanse himself of the dirt and sweat. He relaxes on the land full of grasses under a tree to get rid of the pain of the past. Some of the children got emotional by seeing flowers and beautiful lands after a long time. Suddenly, some unknown soldier-like man comes and announces that they will be provided with weapons, so they should keep them safe and close. Inside the Great Moon Palace, Gu Juyong thanks the First Sword Mr. Lim while having tea for his hard work. The retirement of Lim was confirmed by the captain Gu Juyong, and also the other swords were also permitted for retirement. Lim says that the children are too talented to throw away after one use. When Lim asks for the name of the requester, captain says that it isn't their business to know. Gu Juyong says that until the Blood Phantom group grows enough to be on par with the Jianghu's greatest assassin group, White Spirit Lotus, they should be careful. Completing the request will be a massive leap for the Blood Phantom group, and someday they will be able to catch up to White Spirit Lotus. The whole group seems excited since finally they will be rewarded for all that suffering by chopping someone's head off, but Pyo will seem silent. Finally, they are commanded to move on silently with their mission. The whole group follows the fourth sword at the same pace, and he is impressed by their movements. They come to a dead end, and they are commanded to halt. Fourth sword points to a mountain, saying that their objective lies within that mountain inside a manor. The location is the same as they were memorized by their instructors, which inside the Bright Moon Palace. Their target Wu Gunsang is supposed to be inside to be taken out. In the next scene, a beautiful woman named Sol Ran is seen talking with the MA sect leader Elderly Master of Brilliance in an unknown place. She seems to be the disciple of her, and the master is mad at her for taking the high and mighty tone since she brought her in when she was begging on the streets. They are seeming to be planning on doing something to do what they have been devising for the past 7 years. Her disciple is ready to obey her orders, and she is rather tense to see her master in this great pressure. Suddenly someone named Genwa came running in pure shock, saying to the master that they have received word from Quangcheng. They were given the proposal they wanted, and the master says that the fate of their sect rides on her disciple's performance. Sol Ran promises that she will do well, and her master regrets that her talented child will be used as a political tool. Then Genwa asks the master what they should do about the request of assassination matter, which reveals that they might know something about it. Pyo Wool rests while standing to regain energy, since the assassination will take place at night. All of a sudden, Pyo wakes up while realizing that something wrong is going to happen. Suddenly, one of the assassin squad gets stabbed by a large spear which was poked by a huge guy. His name is Eugenak, who wonders why the assassins are hiding around Quangcheng Mountain because it seems silly to him. Eugenak orders his army to find all the assassins and finish them off, since they have come to invade the Quangcheng sect. Pyo Wool realizes that they are at a big disadvantage, so they have to retreat. When they start retreating, all the guys start chasing them down. Janak keeps throwing spears, which causes the death of multiple assassins. The spear thrown at Pyo Wool gets kicked back to Janak himself, and it ends up slashing his ear a little. Eugenak then finishes off the assassin, who was laying on the ground half dead. Pyo wonders how they were able to track them down, since they didn't see a single person while they were moving to the mountain, so someone must have leaked the information. Pyo Wool realizes that the fourth sword and his subordinates might be the one who left them to die in the first place. All of the children that were left to be ambushed was for destruction of evidence. After thinking for a while, Pyo is now certain that the reason for abandoning them may vary, but the Blood Phantom group has abandoned them all. He was hit by 2 arrows of the enemies, but he successfully ambushes one of them. Pyo Wool jumps down inside the river to escape from his enemies behind him and gets back on a land 600 meters north. He starts traveling without knowing where to go and sees some bloody stones around 1,200 meters northeast. At least 7 different clans were participating in the search of assassins, and it doesn't only involve the Blood Phantom group. Suddenly Li Min appears in front of Pyo Wool, but ends up laying down as she gets unconscious due to the injuries. She reveals that the most of them are dead, and Yowol and Song Chenwu were all dispersed from the group in the attack. They both were fighting with the army so the others can escape from death. She wonders who did this to them, so they had to die like this after surviving everything before. They all were controlled by someone who they didn't even know and were forced to be trampled upon by an unopposable power. She hopes that they will feel the same way as her someday. Pyo reveals to her what he knew about the request that was made to the Blood Phantom for the assassination of Wu Gunsang of the Quangcheng sect. Since the mission was abandoned, everyone is trying to erase the evidence. Pyo promises to her that he will find out who messed with their lives in a flash as long as he survives. He will find them and take his revenge, even if it's the last thing he does. Li Min has only one request to Pyo Wool before she dies, and that is she wants him to call her by her real name. Pyo Wool fulfills her request and she finally falls to her death. Pyo Wool promises to erase the people behind this whole incident. Meanwhile, Captain Gu Juyong is informed by the fourth sword that the inescapable net was set so the children will not survive for long. He thinks it is truly a waste since they are throwing them away after all the time being spent on them. Even he didn't expect that they were going to be disposed of even before they were used. The fourth sword thinks that since the requester chose to destroy the evidence, it will be better for them to finish the Blood Phantom group as well. But the captain thinks that the place is hard to find out about, but the situation changes when they notice that someone put tracking incense on the message. First Sword Lim starts fighting with the people that attack the place and tells everyone to retreat. After realizing that the fourth sword was correct, Captain gets mad since the requester has crossed the line, so he gets ready to fight without escaping. He starts fighting the attackers with his swords while he orders his men to fight back as much as they can. All of a sudden, Genhua arrives at the place and injures the captain badly, and he can now guess who the requester really was. Captain Gu Juyong thinks that he should have known better from the start, and it was better to investigate to know who the requester was. But he kept his words and didn't cross the line by doing that. As the captain of Blood Phantom, Gu Juyong dares that he will not die alone, and obviously not without a fight. Genhua decides that the assassins should all be slaughtered, otherwise they will create a big problem later on. Even though Gu Juyong tried his best, he was overpowered once the master of Genhua arrived in middle of the fight. When he was about to reveal the information openly, the Master of Brilliance finished him off with her weapon. Meanwhile, the first sword himself was slain by the young disciple of the Master, Sol Ran. He jokes about his abilities before his death, since he was no match for even one disciple of the Ma sect. The fourth sword was tortured and interrogated by the vicious Master of Brilliance to get out the information about the number of assassins that were brought in this place. He begged for his own death after getting tortured like that. It was revealed that 24 of the assassins were finished off and only 4 of them is now left to die. It was revealed that the young disciple Sol Ran was being prepared for some wedding for the sake of the Ma sect. Meanwhile, Pyo Wul gets prepared to attack his enemies as the natural enemy of the Zhonghu. In the next morning, Pyo Wul ambushes a third-generation disciple named Dojin of the Quancheng sect to get out information. Dojin reveals that Wu Gunsang is the great star of Quancheng and the greatest prospect that the Quancheng sect has ever birthed. Pyo Wul then wears a face mask as same as Dojin's face and enters the Quancheng sect dressing up as him. Pyo Wul reaches the residence of Wu Gunsang, where Quancheng sect leader was having a meeting with his leaders. Each one of them were promising that nothing like that should happen ever again and were discussing their commands. It was revealed that when Zhonghu was about to be conquered by demonic forces, some top martial artists formed the Heavens Will Alliance, and some of the sects participated and regained their former glory, but Quancheng and Ma sect didn't participate. So they only earned the empty name of 4 heavenly kings and cannot hold a candle to them. While they were discussing about Wu Gunsang, his father says that he has isolated himself to focus on his training with the thought of atonement. He even apologizes for not raising his son properly. His father seems concerned by the thoughts of elderly Master of Brilliance, since she was desperate to catch up to the Quancheng sect through marriage. When Pyo Wul was hiding on the roof to get inside the building, the guards were talking about Wu Gunsang making excuses of isolation training to bring women inside, which makes Pyo think what actually is going on. Since Quancheng sect is a sword sect, so it is not acceptable to sleep with a woman in the sword training hall. Hearing the news shocks Pyo Wul, but he goes inside being his original self at night anyways. After searching for a while, Pyo finds him laying naked with a woman wrapped around him in the sword training hall. He realizes that he is on a whole other level compared to the Blood Phantom group's captain, but he is still human. Just when Pyo Wul was about to hang him with his technique, Gunsang cuts it off with his hand, using it like a knife. A fight breaks between the two of them, and after trying to block the bare hand attack of Gunsang, Pyo Wul feels like he was about to lose consciousness. Pyo Wul tries tricking Gunsang with his knife, but he easily grabs it with his bare fingers and praises his opponent. Gunsang asks Pyo by saying, "Did that bitch's father send you?" Which surprises the hell out of him. Thanks for watching part 2. If this video gets 5,000 likes, I will know that you guys like the manhwa and I will make the part 3. See you in the next video, but until then, stay tuned for the next one. Peace.